Hello and welcome to everyone who just tuned in. This is one of the Discus Ask the Expert series. Today we're talking about mastering spirits. This will be moderated by Kim Eastman, our Industry Education Director, with Rob McCaughey from WSET and a couple guest speakers from members talking about their services. Before we get started, I'm just going to read a quick Discus antitrust policy. Rob, if you can clip over. The Discus Antitrust Compliance Policy. Please be mindful of the Discus Antitrust Policy and refrain from discussing or exchanging information relating to 1. Pricing, marketing or sales plans, costs or confidential plans regarding output or production, boycotting another company, not recruiting or hiring each other's employees or salaries, wages, or benefits, or any other competitively sensitive or proprietary business information. With that, I will hand it over to Kim Eastman, our Industry Education Director, and she will take it from here.
All right, thanks, Ross. Yes, so like you said, I'm the Director of Education. I handle all things education, Discus Academy, and manage the WSET approved program provider partnership. So I'm really happy to have Rob and our panelists here today to talk about the value of the certifications. Rob McAfee, he's dedicated almost 30 years mastering the hospitality and beverage industries. He's got a wealth of experience spanning 3 continents. He's based in the U.S. and is the global head of business development for spirits for WSET. He has a passion for excellence and global experience. It makes him a pivotal figure in shaping the future of beverage education. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody. It's amazing what you can do with ChatGPT these days. My bio's got so much better with technology. Thanks for the introduction, Kim. Lovely to be here with everybody, and I'd love to introduce the 2 guests that we have today as well. 2 good friends of mine and folks who are very familiar with WSET as well. The brand ambassador for Glenmorangie, he's a keeper of the Quake. Always struggle to say that word correctly. It's a tricky one. He's a member of the Council of Whisky-Marders, has been the Glenmorangie brand ambassador since 2013, and again, like me, is old and has far more than 30 years experience in this industry. And then we have Sean, who has quite an unconventional path. He was an Army paratrooper, has his Master of Science in Marine Biology, and is the lead distiller and blender for Papa Pilar Rum in Key West. Thank you guys for being with us here today.
Thanks, my pleasure.
So just to get things kicked off a little bit, I just want to start quickly by, just for people who are less familiar with WSET and what we do, just to give you a sense of who we are. So we are kind of the world's leading provider in drinks qualifications. We've been doing this for over 55 years. We have courses available in 15 languages. We work through providers in 70 plus countries. And we're kind of considered the global standard in beverage alcohol education. And what's really important to us is we are first and foremost a charitable trust. We're an educational body, awarding body. And that means that we're able to offer impartial and brand neutral education, which can really help individuals and businesses build credibility, confidence, and expertise when talking about spirits and other beverage alcohol categories as well. Speaking personally, I've really seen how our qualifications can change people's lives. They can help with career prospects, they can give confidence, enhance job satisfaction, staff retention, and it really has, for me personally, been a great vehicle to navigate this industry. And at this point, I'd like to kind of come to you, Dan, first, and then you, Sean, just to kind of share your thoughts on how important professional development opportunities like WSET qualifications are for the spirits industry.
I think from my experience, what is the most helpful aspect of pursuing certifications in distilled spirits categories is that when you are, like for me, I represent a brand. And so when I walk into retail operations, bars, restaurants, anything else, the unspoken expectation is that I'm going to blather on somewhat endlessly about my brand and have that be somewhat myopic and loaded with talking points that were engineered in C-suite somewhere, and it doesn't really do any positive good for the brand for me to be seen as a propagandist So when I have the ability to pursue these sorts of education opportunities, it helps to round out the language by which I can discuss not just my brand, but the category, its place in the broader category of distilled spirits, and how that category can be leveraged for the good of the business that I'm dealing with in the moment.
It's such a vital thing, particularly now more than ever when people have so much access to information and there are so many brands out there in the marketplace. Sean, what are your thoughts on the importance of education?
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to what he had just said. That, like, for instance, for me, the class was very beneficial. The courses I did, the level 2 and the level 3 in spirits, I've been hyper focused on rum. You know, I knew a little bit about some of the other spirits. Actually, I thought I knew more than I did. As it turns out, taking the class, I learned a lot more than I thought I was going to. And so being able to go out, especially as our brand has expanded into whiskey, and then going out and some of these conferences, and if I'm talking to somebody about tequila, I've found that, you know, if I'm able to speak intelligently about those different spirits that I'm not necessarily in, which I couldn't have done as much before, that leads a lot of credibility to me as a spirits professional beyond just knowing how to make my own. Be able to speak intelligently on that, and also for being able to educate our sales force. There's a lot of them know just the high level stuff that we're told, that they're told, coming from the C-suite, and be able to kind of break it down for them a little bit more to give them a broader understanding of things and how to communicate that to them. I found very beneficial.
Awesome. So Dan, just to kind of follow up on that a little bit for you, obviously you've been in the industry for a long time. Since you've kind of taken some WSET qualifications, has it kind of changed things for you at all? Has it kind of impacted you professionally in any way?
Yeah, to Sean's point, we, as a function of being part of the global whiskey category, just living inside a single malt Scotch whiskey is a thing that you can spend a career discussing, absolutely. But if you don't have a fundamental understanding of what's happening with the other players in the global whiskey category, if you can't cogently discuss bourbon production, say I spend some recreational, but most professional time, if I'm in on premise, it's a whiskey focused bar, and they're going to want to have discussions that probe deeper than not just my brand, not just my category, but our place in the global whiskey category. And without the chops and knowledge and tasting experiences of courses like WSET 3, it would be far more intimidating to be in those conversations with dedicated American whiskey drinkers, dedicated American whiskey marketers, when all I've spent the bulk of my career doing is talking about Scotch whiskey. So it lends credibility and confidence in ways that I would not have predicted the scale of before I sat for those certifications.
Fantastic. And I think consumers have changed a lot, right? I think historically people had their favorite brand, they stuck to a category, and particularly younger consumers now, they bounce around a lot more. They're much more curious. There's a greater range of spirits categories available than ever before. I mean, we're very lucky that we get to teach about Shochu and Awamori and Pisco and some of these fabulous artisanal spirits of the world. And I think if you can understand how you can connect the dots between what you know and what other people know, and show the similarities as well as the differences, that's a great way to kind of expand that mindset and the opportunity there. So what I love about WSET, and I hold my hands up, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time, is that we don't just focus on kind of factual recall and learning about brands and kind of the big names in the industry. We really try to help students acquire skill sets as well as knowledge. And we have this kind of progressive learning pathway. So someone takes one of our level 1 courses, this is really kind of the what. So we just have a light exploration of the category. At level 2, we get into more of the how. So we really start to links of understanding. And by the time we get to level 3, it's much more of the why. We want our students to be able to not only know some things and understand some things, but be able to explain to others what decisions have been made and how that ultimately has impacted what's in the glass. And I think one of the other great things we have at WSET, and I'll ask the guys to back me up on this, is our systematic approach to tasting, which is our kind of tried and tested framework for tasting, describing, and assessing spirits. And it's a great tool for being able to link those tasting skills to that theoretical knowledge. So using tasting not only to taste and understand why this looks, smells, and tastes the way it does, but also to reinforce that theoretical learning. So a question for you here, Sean, first, and then I'll come to you, Dan. How important is it for you in your environment in the distillery and production to have kind of clear, concise language when you're talking about spirits, when you're involved in those kind of sensory panels, when you want your team to be able to kind of communicate with each other? How important is that kind of one global language for you guys?
I think it's really important to have that standardized language, like you're saying, because one thing that learning the SAT approach was, as I'd done rum judging and stuff before, and I'd done a lot of tasting panels, but to be able to kind of like expand on that and break down more of what I'm experiencing and into a common language, because there's a lot of terminology that's used that isn't exactly correct or is misunderstood. So to have that standardized language to be able to speak and to be able to really explain by further breaking down those tasting notes and those aromatic compounds and even down to the appearance of things, to better explain to, even like for me, I spend a lot of my time explaining that to like our sales team and our marketing team, because they're marketers and a lot of them aren't necessarily spirits people. And so when they're asking me to explain the profile of something, I found I still use the approach. I keep the documents of the breakdown in my labs, so I can refer back to it when I'm writing those tasting notes up. So I find it extremely helpful.
Great. And how about you, Dan? Has it informed the kind of way you communicate about whiskey and spirits?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you run into loads of folks in the consumer sector and in the industry sector as well, who haven't, and through no fault of their own, haven't put themselves in a situation that helps them to recognize the power of their own confirmation bias. So when you exercise the blind tasting muscles, and when you learn through the forums like the SAT, when you learn to apply regimen and process to a thing that is, acknowledgedly highly personal, flavor recognition, aromatic recognition is tied to, an individual's memory bank. So it's hard to make that less about the self and more about a critical analysis of the liquid. For me, if I walk around with a bunch of sort of subconsciously delivered confirmation biases regarding the other distilleries, just even in Scotland alone, then I don't go taste them with the sense of exploration and adventure that I do now, based on an understanding of the power of and methodologies for working around confirmation bias. So that when I get these questions all the time, like, within the broader continuum of flavor characteristics in single malt Scotch whiskey, where does yours lie? And if you can't give a sort of a detailed analysis of the flavor characteristics of a competitor's distillery, not just based on they're a competitor, so it's bad, or whatever it is, these sort of knee-jerk responses, you have to be able to look at the liquid for what the liquid is, not in a dispassionate way, but in a systemic way, so that your analysis is based on what the liquid is, what it delivers, and not your predetermined expectations based on an overt understanding of the brand or the branding or the brand positioning. Just looking at the liquid and evaluating it for what it is. That's quite liberating, and it can be very important as a tool of leverage, not even leverage, a tool of communications, so that your input, your part of those conversations is seen, again, not as this biased sculpted language that is primary goal is to leverage your brand in favor of your perceived competitors, but as an analysis, a dispassionate analysis of the liquid in the glass, that I've found to be extraordinarily useful.
It's a tricky thing, right? Because we're talking about something that is ultimately very subjective. You touched on this. We generally communicate in a very figurative and emotive way, and that's generally unhelpful when we're trying to be clear and concise, because we use vocabulary very ambiguously, and then add to that some of the misinformation that's out there. You come across all scotches are peated, or rum has no rules, or rums are sweet because they're made from sugarcane, and that kind of lack of understanding that all beverage alcohol, all ethanol is made from sugar. So I think just to follow up with you, Sean, in terms of the rum category that is so diverse, do you find when you're communicating externally that the SAT has kind of helped kind of position what you guys do and contrast and compare with other rums in a more effective way?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has. I think I was thinking as Dan was talking, one of the things that I took away from when I joined you in New York for that class was, and when he was talking about removing biases, I think it was a tequila that everybody had judged highly. That I'm not as well versed in tequila, so I judged it poorly. And then you would explain, well, to understand that this is a really well done tequila for these reasons, and taking away the biases from it to be able to look at something and judge it a little more fairly based on what the intention was behind it. But yeah, and then again, as especially with like rum and then with whiskey, a lot of the flavor profiles are very similar in a lot of ways. So to be able to communicate why that is to people, we do a lot of tours here, for instance, and we'll get questions about that. So to be able to have that broader knowledge to give to my staff, but also to use myself to kind of break down why you're tasting, what you're tasting, using sort of that SAT and just the deeper knowledge from the course itself, I think adds a lot to the experience for the guest and for our staff.
Yeah, and I think it's having enough knowledge yourself so that you can vary the conversation you're having people based on where they are, meet people where they are. I think there's a risk as you know more that you tend to try and teach at a higher level to everybody, and it's having an understanding of that nuance and then knowing, when to put your foot on the gas, when to kind of lean back a little bit. I think that is such an important skill so that you can bring people in, they can fit, and it's a much more inclusive conversation that way. And I do think the SAT lends to that very well. Both of you guys were very fortunate to get to study with me for 4 weeks. And when we did our level 3s together, I think you both did the full 5-day course, but that's a challenging commitment for folks, right? I mean, I think you'll both attest to the fact that you've got to take a full week out of your schedule. You've got to try and ignore all of the distractions of work and personal life. And what I enjoy about how Discus offers our level 3 and our level 1 and 2 qualifications is using our online classroom. I think that's a fundamental groundbreaking ability to kind of make our courses more accessible to more people. It doesn't change who can take our course, but it increases the bandwidth of who they're available to, because it gives you the ability to study in a more flexible way. Yes, there's a little bit more discipline required. It's very easy with an online course to procrastinate and leave things till the last minute, but it does allow you to fit things in around kind of your personal life, your professional life, and those other commitments in a way that, not everybody has the ability to fly to a city for a full week, spend money on a hotel. So I do think that flexible learning is really important. And maybe Dan and Sean, in terms of, you guys are both very busy. How challenging can it be to kind of manage when you want to do these extra professional development things? How do you kind of navigate that in a way that doesn't detrimentally impact other facets of your life? Dan, I'll come to you first. Sorry.
Awesome. It's exceedingly difficult to try to establish a balance when establishing balance in the best of times is very challenging when you add hundreds of hours of dedicated study and practical tasting rehearsal and things like that to an already packed schedule. It can be really, really tough. I'm fortunate. My wife is very supportive of the advanced certifications that I have pursued, and she has helped me a lot in terms of setting up blind tasting practice and things like that. So she's helped facilitate that in a very tangible way. But yeah, the challenges are myriad. It comes down to carving the time out in an acknowledged way so that okay, this is where the exam is going to be. I have whatever it is, give it 6 months, 9 months, a year. These are periods I must set aside, or I will continue to dig myself a hole that will be exceedingly difficult to dig myself out of. And to your point, I was fortunate to study with you, and I'd been in the industry at that point for 20 plus years, and I was not prepared for the depth and the level that I was exposed to in WSET 3. So it requires a lot of the candidate in terms of a dedication to the purpose and goal. That manifests itself in a sort of a daily, weekly, monthly set of disciplines.
And Sean, you took level 2 before level 3. So just in terms of level 2, I think how that's kind of was that easier to manage in terms of time commitment and what you need to do to prepare there? If you could talk a little to the level 2 experience for us.
Right. So for the level 2, I too was very lucky to have a company that was very supportive. They paid for me to take the course. I just, I brought it up to them, and they were happy to give me the time I needed to do it, but still managing, because I lead production here, can't take time away from that. Fermentation does what it does and then needs to be processed. So it did take a certain level of commitment into personal time, on the weekends or at night to set that time aside to really study the course, because it's like I said, I learned more than I thought I would, and it's a lot of information that you really have to really, I guess, know it, and not just be able to regurgitate it on a test and then purge it from your mind. Like, it takes some time to really to spend on it, and and then with the level, going to level 3, that was a lot more information. It took a considerable amount more time to do. I found myself, when I was in New York, I was getting up and going to the coffee shop at like 5 a.m. to study before coming to the class, just so I could get. Because if you remember, I did sort of a hybrid. I showed up about a third of the way through the course, and then I was playing catch up a little bit, even though I'd been reading, but I'd been traveling. So it definitely takes a time commitment, but it's well worth it, and it's certainly rewarding at the end of it.
Yeah, I think having that support network is great, and I think you both touched on this in different ways. Having the personal support, and then also having that professional support. And I do think, we do have a couple of slides we have here that if you have to go to your boss or your regional manager and kind of get them to buy into the value of education, I think it is super important that to have something that helps lift up the industry, does boost profits, does create staff retention, does help attract better candidates when you're looking for new people to join your teams, and having this kind of very clear beginner to expert level pathway, globally relevant, brand neutral knowledge, our tasting approach that is kind of trademarked and is kind of a benchmark for the industry. I think all of these things kind of make it, I think, quite easy to justify the value of these qualifications. And I do think it's what I've seen in the last, really since COVID, is a shift. So I think it's interesting. I was talking with someone the other day about wine education and how the idea of kind of brand neutral wine education has been around for decades, if not more. And I think it wasn't necessarily the case with spirits historically, right? Spirits was very much about brand education. And I think as everything has evolved, with the world is smaller, we have more technology, we have more knowledge, we have more information, we have the kind of resurgence of craft brands, we have a much more access to a diverse range of spirits. That brand indication in and of itself is still valuable, but I don't know if it's enough anymore to be able to kind of fully comprehend the scale of the industry and what we're trying to navigate every day. I do think things like the WSET qualifications are super helpful for that kind of broader kind of panoramic view of our industry and how to navigate it and communicate about it more successfully. And just kind of to briefly talk folks through our different levels of spirits. So level 1 spirits qualification, it's kind of a 6-hour zero to hero course, right? So you can take it in a day, you can do our online classroom and do a couple of hours a week over 4 weeks. There's no extra books or anything required. Everything is embedded in that online course. And then it finishes with a 30-question multiple choice test. So it's designed to kind of dip your toe in the water, if you will. And it's great for those kind of folks brand new to the industry or just wanting to have kind of just enough kind of confidence and knowledge of how spirits are made to be able to navigate the space. What I will say is level 1 isn't mandatory to take level 2. And I think this is something that isn't always obvious to people. So level 2 is just a bigger, deeper course. So they both have zero expectation of knowledge when you walk in, but a level 2 is we go from that 6 hours of study to about 26 hours. And that's kind of a combination of guided learning, whether that's in a classroom with an educator or using our online classroom, and some private study as well. And there we kind of step up to a 50-question multiple choice test. So whereas a level 1, 70% pass mark gets you over the line, at level 2, we have 55% is the pass, 65% or more is a merit, and 85% or more is a distinction. And then as the guys have alluded to, we have our level 3, which is a much bigger course. So here there's an expectation of about 84 hours of study, about 30 of that guided, the rest private study. And this is the part that folks often come underprepared because they either weren't aware of kind of the size of the course when they signed up, or just life gets in the way, and that happens sometimes. But I always try and talk to people before they sign up to level 3 and make sure they understand that there is a commitment. You know, you'll get a commitment from us in terms of giving you the tools you need to be successful. But likewise, there's a commitment required from the student to really do the work. It's a very tricky course, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, to kind of turn up and wing it and be successful. And I think Dan and Sean could probably attest to that. But in terms of, you guys, Sean, I'm going to come to you first. Like, what advice would you give to folks who are considering taking a level 3 spirits course?
I mean, I would say definitely to take it for sure. If you're considering doing it, if you're in the industry, it's been immensely helpful. I would absolutely recommend it to anybody. I've suggested it to several of the people that I work with to take it. It's a lot of work. But like I said before, it's very rewarding at the end of it because you do get so much knowledge, and then the confidence that you gain going to be able to speak to other professionals and certainly in different spirits makes the value there for me.
Fantastic. And Dan, any advice to share or thoughts to share? Run away! No.
Reflecting Sean's opinion, I can't recommend it highly enough. I do think that when you decide you're going to tackle WSET 3, there does need to be a recognition that you're going to get thrown in at a pretty deep end, and leaning into, as opposed to being put on the back foot, which is somewhat easy to do, particularly if you've been in the industry a while. You can be put on your back foot with a sudden recognition of the gulf of information that you have yet to internalize, that's been out there, waiting for you to discover it. I would suggest lean in just lean aggressively into the I didn't know that and eradicate that, because you have the opportunity to, and W3 spirits, you have the opportunity to eradicate giant chunks of heretofore unknown elements of the spirits industry in a very supportive environment, and a very encouraging environment, and with a structure that can help you, as Sean had mentioned, help you to have that knowledge stick and not just memorize a bunch of stuff, take a test, and open the relief valve and it all runs back out. If there's one thing that I think is maybe the single most helpful thing about going through WSET 3, in a lot of ways, when you are subjected to or subject yourself to spirits knowledge attainment, there can be this knee-jerk response to just learning these points, just pointillistic spots within the sort of larger pantheon of distilled spirits. WSET 3 helps to connect the dots and provide context so that you can use not just your increased knowledge of a given category, but sort of the contextual knowledge that ties it to other categories. To take this, I'm working on an internal course now where I am trying to help people who have only been to bourbon distilleries understand more than what they're seeing, based on an understanding that there's a greater, bigger world out there than what they're seeing. So that connecting of the dots, that sort of knitting together these pointillistic chunks of knowledge that you've ingested, I think the tapestry that you get to build within WSET 3 is the most valuable part of that experience for me.
So I think it's really well put. And what I'm proud of about what we've built with our spirits qualifications is we look at things through the lens of production, right? So if you understand decisions made from picking your raw material, how you process that, what decisions you're making during fermentation, how you're going to distill, and then what you're doing post distillation, those decisions are kind of universal. Whether you're making bourbon, scotch, cognac, pisco, baijiu, and you're just taking a slightly different lens, but the chemistry is the chemistry. That what's happening stays the same. It's just slightly different levers that are being pulled. And I think you touch on this, Dan. It's having the confidence to kind of look for the similarities as well as the differences there, and understand that, okay, it's not necessarily about the grain, it's maybe distillation strength, or it's the type of yeast they use, or it's whatever that may be. When you start to see those connections, it's almost like the light bulb goes off, and it brings this extra level of confidence that is just, it's impossible to kind of quantify really how important and valuable that is as you're kind of developing in your professional career. So well, I think we made that pitch quite well there, guys. So thank you. So, Kim, do we have any questions at this time?
There is a question. Like, is there a tool to help you determine like which level is appropriate?
So for all of our qualifications, again, this is the beauty of us being an awarding body, and in the UK, we're kind of regulated by the Office of Qualifications there. So as part of that, for each of our qualifications, there's a specification. These are publicly available documents on the WSET website. So literally just go to wsetglobal.com/qualifications. You'll see all of our qualifications. And when you click on each one, you'll scroll down and there's a specification. That, honestly speaking, I always recommend it should be the very first and last thing people read before they take the WSET course and then exam, because it outlines all of the learning outcomes, the assessment criteria, the recommended learning hours, the assessment type. And it really gives you a chance to kind of see, this is what we expect from you, and this is what you can expect from the course. And that, to me, is first and foremost where folks should go to kind of get a sense for, obviously, there's going to be a price sensitivity because they're not all equally priced, and they do get expensive as you go through the levels. There's a time commitment, and then there's the knowledge that you're going to get out of it. So that would be the first place I would go. The second place, I would say, reach out to Kim at Discus, reach out to me. Have a chat with us about kind of where you are, what your goals are. I mean, we're available, and again, we have folks from our organization all easy to find. We don't hide very well. We're not delicate wallflowers, sadly, but yeah, reach out to us and ask the question. The biggest one we get is honestly people who want to jump straight in at level 3. And again, maybe this is a question for Sean and Dan as well, because again, these are folks who are very experienced. And Dan, I don't think you did do level 2, Dan, did you?
So I did level 2 back when it
Oh, you
was wine and spirits both.
So that was like one question on gin. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Basically, yes. Yeah. So it didn't really, yeah, to your point, it didn't really count.
So, I mean, what would you recommend then for someone who's kind of thinking, should I jump straight in at level 3 or should I do level 2 first? What's the value of doing level 2 first for someone who's already quite knowledgeable and credible and kind of has a good grounding already? Sean, I'll start with you there.
I mean, I would definitely suggest starting with level 2. As I remember when I first met you, Rob, it was in Austin at a Discus conference actually, and I came up to you and said, "Hey, I was interested in doing this," and told you sort of my background. Where should I start? And you suggested I start at level 2. Like level 1 would just be you giving me money. So level 2, you know, and I looked at it.
I'm pretty sure I gave you a free book as well.
You did. You gave me, I think, all 3 of them. And I'm glad that I took level 2 because you know, I try to always remind myself that, you know, you don't know what you don't know, and but I thought I knew more than I did. And level 2 really laid a nice groundwork, being mainly focused on rum, a nice groundwork, a base to go into level 3 with. I could have done level 3 without it, but it would have been substantially more difficult. They wouldn't have had some of that knowledge already. I would definitely suggest starting at level 2 for sure.
Yeah. So Dan, as someone who took that slightly more challenging approach, in hindsight, do you wish you'd done level 2 first?
Yeah, I do. It would have been a little bit less jarring. So yeah, I mean, if I had it to go over again, I would look at 2 as a warm up for 3. 2 is not the place that you stop. 2 is it sets up the precursors for success in 3.
Yeah, and well, the way I explain it is there's a lot of very particular use of language at WSET, and obviously we have our systematic approach to tasting, and particularly at level 3 where you're having to answer short red answer questions as well as just a multiple choice test. If you're not already familiar with WSET's methodology and pedagogy when you come into level 3, you actually spend so much time trying to learn that and get to grips with that you have less time to actually study what you need for the meat of the course. And I think that's the most challenging part of jumping in at level 3. I will say level 1 does have a place, and it's a great course for people, like I said, who are either brand new to the industry, and this includes like C-suite. I get a lot of people who move into beverage alcohol in high-level roles who maybe worked in other consumer goods and things, and they'd like the level 1 just because it gives them that kind of basic understanding that they think that will be helpful for them. And I've also found it really helpful for folks who aren't kind of necessarily frontline sales or production. So a lot of people who are working, we had a group for level 1 who were doing data entry for one of the big distributors, and they were data people, but they're entering data every day on spirits, and they didn't really, it was all so abstract for them. And for them, they found the level 1 super helpful just to take what was just something that was abstract kind of data they were entering into something that was tangible. And I agree, level 2, I think, is a great universal course for everybody. I think it stretches you enough because again, most of us live in a lane. Most of us, we know whiskey, or we know rum, or we know cognac. There's very few folks who have that broad understanding of all of the kind of major spirits categories of the world. So I do think level 2, it's great for filling in some of those gaps, and it's great as a stepping stone towards level 3. So hopefully that answered the question there.
Yeah, another question is there a way to preview a course?
Yeah, so we have demo versions of our online course. And so there's, and I can share a link with Kim that can be shared with everybody. So basically it's a demo version. So it has a module or two from each of the courses so that you can kind of see what the online classroom experience kind of looks and feels like. So that's absolutely something we have. Beyond that, I mean, there's hours of me on YouTube delivering little sessions and things like that. So again, if this hasn't put you off my voice for life, then I'm happy to share some links with kind of, you know, little micro sessions from the course and things like that. So yeah, the demo online class is probably the best place to get a sense of what that ecosystem looks and feels like. And then, you know, there's some YouTube stuff out there of bits of snippets of the course being taught if you want to actually get a sense for the meat of things and how we deliver that in the real world.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Or you could just pay your money, sign up for a course, and then you get it in live Technicolor. I would recommend that strategy as well. Any other questions there, Kim?
Not right now.
Okay. So again, obviously this is the chance for you to kind of sign up while the iron is hot. So again, Discus are a great partner of ours. They make all of our courses available. So you can take the level 1 or 2 courses, digital end to end. Like I said, level 1 is not required to take level 2. And then for the very first time, Discus are going to be offering the level 3 course. So that's an online course that will start in July. And we will be doing a couple of days in person there in DC in September. And I will say for the level 3 that because of the nature of the course, even if you take the online course, it does require a couple of days in person. We primarily focus on the tasting calibration side of things in that format. And then the second day in person is the exam. There is a very cool little QR code there on the screen, so you can scan that, or you can go to the Discus website. But hopefully this has inspired you to take one of the courses or to have your team take the courses. And like I said, if there's questions that come up later on, feel free to reach out to myself, feel free to reach out to Kim. And looking forward to starting you all on your WSET journey. Just wanted to give a big thank you to Dan and Sean for joining me today and being my cheerleaders. It's fabulous. I've never had such worthy cheerleaders before. So if you're Sean and Dan, just one last word from you, just in terms of one final takeaway as to why they should take a WSET course. What would you say to someone who says, why should I do this?
Sean, do you want to take that one, or you want me to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, one final reason why they should take it, I mean, we've covered like those reasons, the knowledge that you'll gain no matter how much you already know, or I should say think that you know, you'll find that you're going to learn more, and the confidence you'll have going forward in your careers is invaluable.
Awesome.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is facing that sort of the scale of WSET 3 can set you up for walking into any other certification program that you can find with a level of confidence that is formidable. The bit where it's impossible to address the gaps in your knowledge when you don't know what you don't know. The cool thing about WSET 3 is that wherever you want to go in distilled spirits, it helps you to see the potentials, the potential areas where what you don't know that you don't know could trip you up. They reveal enough of them so that you can follow any of those pathways that you want with a certain confidence walking in, that you have a strong fundamental foundational understanding of the category regardless of the category.
That
Yeah,
sounds like an excellent time to drop the mic. That's beautiful. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Discus, for this opportunity to talk about WSET. Again, and if there's one more reason you need to sign up, there's a strong possibility if you take level 3, you get to hang out with me for a day or two. If that doesn't seal the deal, I don't know what will, folks. So.
Thank you so much. Yes, to Rob and Dan and Sean, thank you. This has been very worthwhile. And also, just to let you know, we will be releasing more dates beyond these. So I think that comes up, Rob, I think maybe next month we'll be seeing the new dates.
Yeah, and that's not Discus's fault, that's WSET's fault. So our academic year runs from August to July. So we're just in the process of finalizing our prospectuses and calendars for online classes for the next year. So normally mid-May is when that's available. So watch this space.
All right. Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.